Hi everyone and welcome to the new handcraft woodwork video. Today's video will be about taking some scrap wood and crafting some beautiful bowls out of it as a personalised gift for my family. My intention is to make each bowl in some way reflect the character of the person I'm making it for. This project is going to be challenging as I've never turned a bowl before, so let's see how it goes. My youngest son is with me here. He loves my workshop. He's always trying to convince me to let him in and watch me work. At the minute, we're chopping wood down to size so we can mount it on the lathe. Cutting the corners off saves a lot of work with the lathe chisel. I'm starting with my youngest son's bowl, making sure the chisel is nice and sharp. First, I'm turning the wood into a circular shape so it's nice and even around. Then we can begin shaping it. I'm using a very basic set of chisels that came with my very basic lathe. The chisels are not the best and there wasn't a bowl gouge included, so I decided to make one by sharpening one of the chisels into a rounded shape at the end. It took a little while to get it right and a few attempts to get a shape that worked, but I was pleased with the results eventually. So this is the first ever bowl I've turned, and it's going well so far. We can see here it's beginning to take shape. We're doing the bottom of the bowl first, and then we'll flip it and mount it on the plate so we can carve out the centre. And now we've begun to turn the top side of the bowl, hollowing out the centre. This bit is really fun and satisfying. After turning these bowls, I've definitely got a taste for it and hope to be making many more. I'm leaving a little bit in the middle as I've heard someone say it stops the walls of the bowl flexing while you're turning it. Although I'm not sure that really is necessary on a bowl this small. It's shaping up nicely and I feel pleased with it so far. I'm getting a lot of tear out though, especially on the end grain. Some of it is really bad. For those of you that don't know, tear out is where chunks of the wood are ripped out by the tool instead of cut cleanly. And this leaves big holes and deep marks in the surface of the bowl. It can really spoil the finish if you can't eliminate the marks. It can happen for a number of reasons: wood type, tool type, the way that you're using the tool. To be honest, I think it's all three with this case here. It's soft wood, which isn't the best for turning. It's very dry, which also isn't the best. And my tools are not the best, resulting in the bad tear out. What I try and do to minimize it is go over the bowl with very gentle passes. So we move on to oiling now. Some boiled linseed. Coat it and wait for it to absorb, and then wipe off the excess and polish it on the lathe. Then we can cut off the waste at the bottom. I left that inch or so at the bottom there for the screws to sink into so we could mount it to the plate. I don't have a chuck, so I have to use screws on the plate to mount it to the lathe. I would like to buy a chuck one day. Sanding the base flat and smooth and applying oil, ready to give it to my boy. So I had actually already given him the bowl by this point. I only got the idea to film it later, and I asked if I could give him his bowl again, and he was pretty confused. I will say his initial reaction to receiving the bowl was slightly more enthusiastic. He is really pleased with his bowl, and he's taken to carrying it around with him, although he has already managed to scribble in the middle of it with red biro. The bowl turned out little and cute and round, just like him. Success. Moving on to the second bowl now, for my middle son Isaac. My intention is to make this bowl slightly larger and with a sleeker finish. I'm using the same wood as the first bowl, so I am limited on the depth of the bowl as I need at least 20 mil of waste at the bottom to sink screws into for the turning plate when I hollow out the middle. As with any process, I'm beginning to become a little more familiar now that I've done it once before, so it's a little more streamlined and I'm avoiding mistakes I made with the first one. That's one reason I like doing a job more than once, as it gives a chance to realise where I went wrong and correct it, being a bit of a perfectionist. This time I measured the corners I was cutting off and cut with the handsaw. It was much cleaner and enabled me to turn a better circle once it was on the lathe. This bowl has less curved sides, is a little more straight-edged with a wider base. The finish on it turned out much smoother than the first, and I was really happy with the overall shape. It was also much quicker this time around, as I had much more confidence. I feel like this bowl also suited Isaac's character, although it did turn out a little smaller than I had hoped. I had the same issue with tear out due to the dry, soft wood and poor tools, but we got there in the end with sandpaper and a lot of time. A coat of boiled linseed and it's done, ready to give to Isaac. He said to me after I gave it to him, "Papa, why were you holding a camera on your face?" And I realised I was a bit nervous about filming me giving it to him. I've never done that before and I was worried it might spoil the purity of the gift giving. And in my nerves I managed to hold the camera directly over my face, making the experience even more weird for him. We laughed and I apologised, resolving to hold the camera much lower when I gave the next bowls. Okay, on to the next bowl. For my eldest son, Ira. For this one, I used a different wood. I think it might have been pine from its smell, although I'm not very good at wood identification, so I'm not sure. It has a larger width, so I'm able to make a larger diameter bowl with this one, and it's slightly thicker so I can make the bowl deeper too. I was looking forward to making a larger bowl and started enthusiastically. I cut a circle on the bandsaw this time, which was much easier to turn from the get-go. I was attempting a more curved shape for this one with a smaller bottom. I ran into some big problems here. Whilst putting the finishing touches to the outside shape of the bowl, my tool skipped and gouged a huge deep line out of pretty much the whole surface. It was ruined. I had to take off loads more material, making the bowl a lot smaller and drastically changing the shape. This tool skipping happened a few times and I couldn't work out why. It was so stressful that I wasn't actually filming at this point. There was a big learning curve here, and that's why the bowl suddenly changes size and shape in the video. I came to learn that I was rushing and being too heavy-handed with the tools. I needed to be slower and more gentle to avoid the big skips. When I was going slower, I could be more sensitive and notice which way the tool wanted to turn and respond accordingly. I was happy with the shape of the bowl in the end, even if my nerves were a little frayed, and somehow it seemed to suit Ira as well. Success. Let's see if he likes it. There was a crack or two in the wood, but they weren't too big and didn't pose a major problem. Sanding for a while at a low grit to get rid of most of the tear out, using the Hoover trick I learned from another video to suck up the dust as I was sanding. It works great. Oiled and polished, it's time to give it to Ira. None of these handovers were staged. I just walked in from the workshop and found them there. There happened to be a lot of laptop watching as it was a couple of wet and windy days with not much outside time. Ira really liked his bowl, and you can even see Ayan there holding his bowl. He wasn't wearing clothes at this point, but luckily he was protecting his modesty with his bowl. The kids loved them. Great success. Now we move on to the final bowl, for my wife Leonie. I'm using the same wood as Ira's, and I'm going to make this one slightly larger as well. Again, we're cutting the circle on the bandsaw, as it worked really well last time. And this time when I start turning, I'm a lot more cautious and gentle, taking off much smaller amounts each time I pass, as I'm still feeling frayed from those hideous gouges in the last bowl. I'm taking it much more slow and careful, and it's also eliminating most of the tear out. Excellent. Whatever this wood is, it seems to be a little better to turn than the first stuff, although still not ideal. When I was finishing the shape, I still managed to get a tool skip and gouged out a section of the bowl. It wasn't disastrous though, and it inspired a new and very pleasing shape to the bowl, which I feel was actually much better and really suited Leonie as well. I was very excited to give it to her, as I was really pleased with how this one turned out, and the finished piece looked beautiful. Let's see if she likes it. The middle of this bowl was very nice to carve out. I was getting some nice big curls coming off the wood. It was cutting really nice and cleanly, and I wasn't getting much tear out at all. It seems like the tool was really sharp and in a good shape, and I was holding it nicely. All the practice seemed to be paying off. I was very happy with this as a fourth attempt at bowl turning. go. A personal bowl for each member of my family, all turned out of scrap wood, trash to treasure, and they are all very pleased with them. It was great fun making these, and I can't wait to do more bowl work. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, if you like the content of course. It really helps me and motivates me to make more for you all. Thanks for watching and have a great day. See you on the next one.